When I first became interested in filmmaking, I had no idea how expensive all of the gear that you would need to make videos would be. When you're trying to get all your stuff at the start, it can kind of break the bank a little bit, trying to fill your camera bag. And especially if you're wanting to do things professionally, you tend to need a little more gear in most cases. But over the years since I started doing this, there's actually been several items that I've bought along the way that weren't crazy amounts of money and that I found really, really useful with making videos. So I thought, why not share some of this stuff with you guys? And if you were wanting to add something else to your filmmaking kit without spending your month's paycheck, then now you can. So here are 10 items that are less than $100 that will help you to make better quality videos. And especially if you're a YouTube filmmaker or a vlogger, this is gonna help you out loads. Number one is a Superclamp. This one's by Newer and it's about $40. Sometimes you need to get a shot from somewhere that a tripod isn't gonna fit and you've not always got another pair of hands around to hold the camera. In fact, if you're someone that makes YouTube videos, likelihood is most of the time you're filming on your own. If that's the case, then a Superclamp is gonna be your best friend. I've especially found this little tool useful for driving shots because obviously I can't be trying to hold the camera whilst driving, that would be very naughty. But with the Superclamp, I can literally attach the camera to a decent spot in the car and then just focus on my driving. The camera can be left recording, I can do the scene, and then once I've finished driving, then I can stop the recording and no rules have been broken. You can pretty much attach these to anything that's sturdy and it's gonna hold. So these are so useful to have. If you are someone that makes a lot of videos on your own, I honestly can't recommend one of these enough. They're pretty cheap and they help out such a lot when you're trying to film solo. But of course, usually, if possible, you'd be using a tripod, and so number two is a tripod. This, I think, is the most expensive item on the list. This tripod is by K&F Concept. It might seem like a strange thing to spend a large amount of money on a tripod, but honestly, this was one of the best investments I've ever made. Again, if you're often someone that's filming yourself, then as you're building up your camera rig, eventually it's gonna get heavier and heavier. And if you've got a flimsy plastic tripod that you're putting all of that weight on the top, it's only gonna take a light breeze or a little knock from something and all of your hardware is just gonna come crashing to the floor. So investing in something that's got a bit of weight to it, something that's solid, made of like machined metal, that's not gonna fall over easily. $90 might seem like a lot, but in the long run, it could save you a fortune. Number three is a variable ND filter. This one, again, is by Newer, and if you have any intention of filming outside, you're gonna need one of these. It's basically sunglasses for your camera lens. Now, if you were only taking photos, then you can kind of get away with not having one because you can adjust your shutter speed, your aperture, things like that to control how much light is getting to the sensor. But with video, you're likely going to be quite limited because the settings are often tailored to fit what you're doing. So if you're at 24 frames a second, which is your standard, 1/50 for a shutter speed is going to let tons of light in. So there's not really any way to get away with having a shallow depth of field at the same time as that without using one of these. Fortunately, they're not very expensive. This one was about $30. But as affordable as they are, they only fit one size, and this one in particular is a 55mm thread. Some of my other lenses don't fit 55mm filters. So do I then have to buy multiple different varieties of this? Because that's going to get expensive, right? Well, no, fortunately not, because we have our fourth item on the list, which is step-up rings. Step-up rings screw onto your lens to enable you to put filters on that wouldn't normally fit. It's basically like a little converter to save you having to buy multiple filters. This has been really handy for me if I've wanted to get shots with a shallow depth of field outside, because my kit lens that I'm using now only goes down to about f3.5, which is not that low, whereas my nifty 50 goes down to f1.8. But surprise, surprise, the filters didn't fit. So there's a step-up ring that sort of lives permanently on here, which means that outside I can just whack the same filter on and I'm good to go. So yeah, these are dirt cheap, but they are so useful. I wouldn't be without them at all. Number five is a weird one, blank playing cards. Again, these are pretty cheap. I think I bought 4 or 5 packs of these for $10, so they're probably the cheapest thing on this list. I have found there to be so many uses for these. The main thing I use them for is I'll keep 1 or 2 of these in my camera bag so that I can adjust my white balance. I've always got something that is white on me, and then I can just point the camera at it, turn the Kelvin up or down, and again, I'm set. I've also used them to make flashcards for videos in the past, which has been useful, and I'm sure there's plenty of things that you could do with them that I've not even thought of yet. So yeah, bit of an odd choice, but I think these are something that filmmakers could definitely make a lot of use of. If nothing else, just to set your white balance, they're pretty handy. Number 6, a Smallrig Cage Kit. So this is my usual video camera, which is a Sony ZV-E1. It's quite a lightweight camera, and it always felt a little bit, I don't want to say flimsy because the build is solid, but it just felt like I could easily damage it because of how lightweight it was. But ever since I bought this Smallrig Cage Kit, it's not felt like that. It's felt proper, solid, and just a bit more durable, which is nice. And it's the perfect buy if you're wanting to give your camera just a little bit of extra protection, or especially if you're wanting to build up a small rig around it. It's got all these screw holes and cold shoes all over it, so you can really do a lot in terms of building out your rig. And the first thing that I would probably recommend attaching to it is a good handle, and that's item number 7. The Smallrig Top Handle. I actually took all of this off to show you these items one by one, so now I'm having to reassemble my own rig. I shoot a lot of my stuff handheld, so obviously the steadier you can hold your camera, the better, and having something like the Smallrig Top Handle is really just going to help you move the camera smoothly. It offers you such a lot of control just having this simple handle on top, and it's nice as well. It's all machine cut from metal. It feels solid and sturdy. It's got a threaded screw here that you can tighten with an Allen key, and it has locking pins that hold it in position, so there is practically no way this is coming off. It also makes your camera super easy to carry. How much easier is that than that? That doesn't feel too secure. That feels very secure. Plus, if you're showing up at professional shoots, once you've started building something around your camera, it does start to look a little more like you mean business, even if it is still essentially the same thing. Number 8 is a black diffusion filter. This is again by Newer, and it costs about $30. Something that's a staple of the filmic look is having soft highlights and shadows, and this filter will help you achieve that effect in camera rather than having to do it in post. Basically all this is doing is interacting with the light before it hits the sensor of the camera and just making everything a bit softer and reducing the contrast. It can also interact with strong light sources in quite a strange way, in that it creates sort of like a dreamy glow halo effect, which can look really great in some circumstances, but for that reason, unless that's the look you're going for, I probably wouldn't recommend just having it live on your camera lens at all times unless that's something you really love. But it's a great tool to have, and it does make for an interesting change to the appearance of your footage. Number 9 is the Rode Video Micro. We all need a half decent microphone. A lot of cameras have built-in microphones that aren't too bad now, but the reason I've picked this is not just because it's cheap. It's only about $70, $80, but it's also really, really good for the price point. And it's not powered, which means that you don't have to charge it up. You can literally attach this to your camera and it's never going to run out of battery. It's always going to sound pretty good. It just doesn't have the range of a more expensive microphone. The further you are away from it, it does lose a bit of clarity, but it's much better than any camera's inbuilt mic. I use this all the time for run and gun stuff because often I'm shooting B-roll. I only need the basic sound of what's going on. And I never have to worry that later on when I put the camera in someone's face and ask them for some comments on a job that, oh no, it's ran out of battery and now I can't actually get the audio that I need. This is always going to work. So it's great. If nothing else, it's a good backup to use if you've lav mic'd someone up and you just want to make sure that there's no chance anything got lost. This will still sound pretty good. And the last item on this list is this 2TB external hard drive by Seagate. You need to back your files up, and it's also handy to work off of a hard drive if your computer is running out of space, because that can make it slow and sluggish. So I would recommend getting some of these. It's about $70, $75. It's not too much, but if you're filling up your computer with 4K footage, it's gonna lag and it's gonna make it hard to work. It's a no-brainer again. And it means that there's less chance if you've got files on the cloud, on your computer, and on one of these, and something goes wrong, you've got a backup. There's not gonna be any awkward conversation with a client because you lost everything. And that concludes my list of budget filmmaking items. I hope that was useful to you. I've put links to each of the items I mentioned in the description, so if you wanted to buy any of them, you can. They are affiliate links, but it doesn't cost you anything extra. It just means basically that Amazon sends me a cut of the purchase as a little thank you for sending customers their way. So you help the channel out too if you want to buy one. I've also got new videos coming soon, which I'm really excited for. It's going to be a little bit more highly produced than this one. This was just a quick one before I go away on holiday. So keep an eye out and I'll see you then.